20 minutes before 9 o'clock at WJTN. Jamestown Community Baseball, LLC, will be the subject on this program for the next few minutes. Joining us first, as he usually does on Tuesday mornings, the president of that organization, Russ Dietrich. Good morning, Russ.
Good morning to you, Dennis.
Nice to have you on the air, as always.
Well, nice to be here. Good day for a doubleheader, rain or shine.
I hope so. And also joining us in the studio today from Jamestown Community Baseball, LLC, is Greg Peterson. Greg, good morning.
Good morning, Dennis. Delighted to be here.
And always a joy to have the opportunity to speak to you, particularly about baseball. And Greg, introduce the special guest you have brought to the studio with you today.
Oh, and he is special. There's no question about it. Jim Gallagher is our special guest, and he's adorned in a retro Jamestown Falcons uniform. And Jim is the brother of Jack Gallagher. And Jack Gallagher, 80 years ago, was the bat boy for the very first team of Jamestown to play at Municipal Park, now known as Dietrich Park. And Jim will be our honorary bat boy 80 years after his brother was the bat boy for the Jamestown Falcons. It doesn't get any better than this.
Jim Gallagher, good morning.
Thank you very much. Nice talking to you, Dennis.
And nice to have you on the radio today. How do you feel about this honor, the sudden limelight celebrity that is finding you?
I haven't been able to soak it all in. It's when Greg approached me on this, I had no idea what this was going to be all about. And then I'm looking. I've got a picture of my brother and the 41 Falcons in my bedroom. And I looked at it and I said, my gosh, it is 80 years. I thought, wow, this is something. And I can remember I was only 8 years old at the time. So it was something different, something to go through this Thursday.
Russ Dietrich.
Awesome. Jim, did you ever fill in for your brother Jack?
No, I was too young.
Too young. You
Yeah.
didn't even get in the eighth inning or not either, did you?
No. Again, I was only, at that time, he was, I'm thinking around 16 or 17, because he graduated in 43. I was only 8 years old at that point. So there was about 8 or 9 years difference between the two of us.
Did you get to take a ball home after every game?
No, never. No.
Jim, tell us a little bit about your brother. He is deceased, we should say. He is no longer with us, sadly. But tell us a little bit about your brother Jack.
Well, he was a wonderful brother. One of the reasons he moved to Florida later on in life, he met his wife, but then he decided, family is first. He said, so he decided to come back up north. And at that time, he came back and was running kind of the manager at the Thule for a while. And then he got into the food service. He great into the food service. At one time, he had a restaurant over on 2nd Street called Jack's Place, Jax. And it was, Kinky Kinberg always talks about it, that he had a fish bowl that was down at the level, you'd have to bend down to take a look at it. And there was a sign that said, invisible goldfish. And people would stop and keep looking at that. And, of course, everybody inside the restaurant and the bar were howling because watching these people look for a goldfish that was invisible. He did things like that. He was fun. He was fun to be with.
Jim, do you have any other brothers and sisters?
I had a younger brother that was 2 years younger than me who passed when he was a sophomore in high school, when I was a senior. And then I had an older sister that was a little older than Jack.
Mm-hmm. Where did you live? Did you live on Palmer Street?
Yeah, on Palmer, right there at the end of the driveway where Lincoln School, you drove out. My house was right there.
I used to play ball with your younger brother at the Lincoln Field.
Oh, yeah.
Day after day after day.
Yeah, with Phil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, have you been practicing or anything for your responsibilities coming up here on Thursday night?
No, because I really don't know. I know one thing I'm going to do, exchange lineup cards. Beyond that, I know nothing.
Well, we don't want. There's got to be a certain mystery in life, Dennis. And Jim, will be fully adorned in his hat, which he has with him, and he's wearing his uniform, and I understand his son and grandson will be joining him as well.
Right. They're coming in from Homer, New York, which is a suburb of Cortland.
Greg, can you do a little more? What's so exciting about the first day of opening the season and the Gallaghers and baseball and the history of baseball?
Well,
take a little moment or two to tell us about that.
Sure. A little Reader's Digest of what's going on is I did a little math on the back of an envelope today, and it's been over 1,000 days since the cry of play ball at Dietrich Park. And so that dust will be cleaned off, and we will be playing our first game against Batavia. Symbolically, Batavia is the same team which opened Municipal Stadium in 1941. And so the connect historically to all of that is Jack and Jim Gallagher. There will be at just a outside parking lot starting at 5 o'clock. There's going to be Pepsi sponsored. There will be a band. There'll be food trucks. There'll be all kinds of activity outside the ballpark starting at 5. And then at 6:30 that will end. And we hope all will then join us inside the ballpark for the festivities, which will lead up to the beginning of our first game. And like I said, in over 1,000 days. So very, very exciting stuff. There's, as the community, I may take an opportunity, has been incredibly excited about this. There's been much out there. There's signage, which is now for the first time. David Troxel, thank you. Mascot known as Whiffy. You know, you gotta be that. And what the business operations led by Jacob Kinberg and the team, which currently is 4-1, just to drop their record, headed by Jordan Bazile. Much excitement going on, and gosh, I haven't really appreciated all of that in a long period of time. So that's what's going to happen Thursday.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of history in baseball in those thousands of days you've been talking about. But they're writing history every day, aren't they, with the operation at the stadium now?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, we've got, as noted in the recent publication of the book Our Game, and as further supplemented by a Post-Journal insert last Saturday, chronicling the history of the game running up through the creation of the Jamestown Community Baseball, and now we're doing it and creating another chapter to be added, and hopefully many more chapters to be added to that book. And our team has been on the road for the last 5 games, and like I said, we're 4-1, and look forward to welcoming you all back and to continue to write that chapter. But be quick to point out, Dennis, your interviewer here on this session is the guy who wrote many, many, many chapters of the history of baseball, Russ Dietrich, and appropriately, that's where we'll be gathering Thursday.
Well, and I wanted to ask you, Russ, about your emotion as it was about to become real a year ago and then could not because of COVID-19, and that came after a year off, so 2 years with no baseball at the park that bears your name. Just your sense of all of this now that it is actually happening, so far not at home, but will be beginning at home, weather permitting, on Thursday nights. What are you thinking and feeling about all of this?
Well, it's awesome, Dennis, to actually see him to come back on the field. With the Jamestown Community Baseball, there's been baseball in my life during that period of time every moment. So I've been baseball regularly. It just hasn't happened on the ball field. And to see the team that Greg and others have put together to step forward, to see that there was a foundation to support the team, and all of those things that happened, that's an all-star event to see that happen. And then I don't know for sure, Greg can help me quickly, Jamestown almost comes home in first place in the league, don't they? I don't know anybody else has a better than 4-1 record so far. So the champions are in first place when they come home to play. So it's exciting, and it's going to be a wonderful summer. The baseball would be available at the stadium. And then there's also some future Skunks going to play in the stadium in the Babe Ruth World Series. That's the younger guys that are stepping forward. And one of their next steps would be the league is in Jamestown.
I would like to have you recount one other part of history, Russ, because there was another time in which you and others in the community, and as I recall, it was in the late 50s or early 1960s, in which you personally put your own lives and your own money on the line in order to keep a baseball team at the municipal stadium at that time. Tell us a little bit of that story.
Well, there was that time in the 50s when Pittsburgh decided to no longer be here in the middle of the season, and so that sort of threw a monkey wrench into the things. And there was a struggle. So there was a group of people led, just coming back, Mr. Lou Shepard, who was president of Jamestown Telephone Company, became the lead gentleman. And we put together a community effort, as Greg has put together for this, and we raised money to pay off the debt that they had. And there was a long time when three people generally had to step forward at the season and go to the bank and get a loan for the season to help pay the bills and pay the operation. And at the end of the season, whatever we were short, that group had to walk into the bank and bring it all back to zero.
And how long did that...
a wonderful, wonderful effort like that. And again, there were just all kinds of folks that stepped forward to help in the program. And the community, we didn't have to go in and wring anybody's neck and go in crying to tell us a fence sign or a sign for inside the stadium or the program book or tickets, and all of that was done. There was a time when they bought a season ticket and they made an additional $100 donation to Jamestown Furniture City Baseball to help build that foundation. Because I think when that team, I don't have it exactly in front of me, the team of people that took it over, I think it was about a $40,000 debt had to be paid off with, travel and balls and bats and league dues and to pay for umpires and et cetera. And those people stepped forward to take care of that. And there was a great group of people that stepped forward to assist the Jamestown Furniture City baseball officers.
And how long did that go on, Russ, before...
that went on for several years. The fact that we got it straightened around and been working with Major League Baseball during that time. And Jim Fanning, by name, was one of the people that stepped forward to help bring the Atlanta team into town. And then when his transfer and as his career took him to Montreal with the Expos. And then the Expos come to Jamestown for a long period of time, and along with the Boston Red Sox. And, just you could go on for the rest 2 or 3 or 4 hours. There's just a lot of good support. And all of that, they did that willingly and easily because they knew the history of Jamestown. They had the faith in the people in Jamestown. They had the faith of the baseball people that were stepping forward. And they knew that Jamestown had a great love and desire for baseball because in every piece of ground in the Jamestown area and surrounding area, there were ball fields on it. And when there were youngsters playing ball, they would go choose up teams. And baseball all summer long the cry was play ball. And so the major leagues had great faith in what they were hoping to do and did do in Jamestown.
And Greg Peterson, you, decades later in the new millennium, tapped into those same sorts of resources to secure this business, Jamestown Community Baseball LLC, now playing college wood bat ball, to ensure local ownership and control a second time.
I loved listening to Russ's story because it's 60 years ago. So 1961, this is 2021, where Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again, where in fact right now more than 35 locally interested investors have participated in making sure that baseball continues in our Jamestown Community Baseball League group. And I thank all of them, and there'll no doubt be most of them at the ballpark variously throughout the season. but it's a similar sense where an owner was leaving, and a void was created, and it was filled by the interested people in Jamestown, motivated principally to maintain and continue baseball. And so that which Russ did in 1961, I was the beneficiary of going to baseball games in the 60s, down there watching the Jamestown Tigers, and now I hope that what we've done, 35-plus people, will lead to other beneficiaries for years to come.
7 p.m. Thursday against Batavia, 7 p.m. Friday against Elmira. The two games. Want to swing Jim Gallagher back into the conversation here for a moment. Jim, we talked about your brother, but we didn't give your life story. Were you big in baseball, too? Tell us about your career and interests.
I played baseball. I was a couple years older than Russ, and I think we both played over at Lincoln Junior High, the baseball field over there. And so through the playground system, I played ball, and then there was championships from all the schools during the summer. And I remember we went down. I was on the team that went down. We played down at the stadium for the championship game. Shortened up the bases a little bit, but that's my only time that I ever played down at the stadium. But I love baseball. I've been a follower of the Red Sox for hundreds of years. I've got my room in my apartment. It's a heaven of Red Sox.
And that's why Russ Dietrich has not been invited down to see that, because of being such a Yankee fan. I should quickly add that Jim was telling me off sound that he was an usher at the ballpark under the ownership of John Yackham, fellow Chautauqua Sports Hall of Famer, and I got a whole lesson. But, tell a little bit about that, Jim.
Oh, yes. I was an usher over on the visitors' side, and I can't tell you how many years. But I can always recall the story that John Yackham one day asked me, he says, "Jim, can I drive you home?" I said, sure. So I knew something must be up. Either I'm going to get fired or I don't know what. But anyway, it was about a couple who lived in town, nameless, who used to have reserved seats. And every time after the game started, they slipped down into the box. And so what am I going to do? I'm a 15-year-old, 14-year-old. Am I going to tell someone, get out? No, I couldn't really do that. So I let it go on. But John Yackham noticed that, and he said, you got to tell them, from next time you see them, they can't move down into the box anymore. So I did have to confront them, and everything worked out fine. But that was one of my main experiences with John Yackham.
Give us a thumbnail biography, one of you, of John Yackham, for those who don't know who he was and his importance in the ball games around here.
He was, my brother knew him quite well. John was born out there and lived out in South Dayton, New York. Little, not very much out there. And eventually, when he got into the Jamestown team, he eventually bought and got in with the Washington Senators. And then I know Jack run into him when he was in the service down in Savannah, Georgia. Now, what John Yackham was doing there, maybe he was in the service at the same time. So Jack and John Yackham had been friends for a number of years.
And, Jim, your career otherwise, aside from on the baseball field or at the stadium?
It's been in education. I've been, when I graduated from Kent State back in 61, wow, that's 60 years ago, I moved to Cleveland and worked at Case Western Reserve and the admissions office there, which is now Western Reserve. And then I moved back to town. I was here at one time visiting high schools. So someone said, well, there's a job opening down at JCC. I said, well, I'll go down and see what it's all about. Well, I talked to a few people, and I walked out of there, and I had a job offer. So I went home and talked to Cynthia, and I said, what do you think? She said, we better go. I'd love to come back here. So I was down there for 28 years. That's strange now because I've been retired from there for 29 years.
Well, Jim Gallagher, great to see you again. And thank you for coming up. Thanks for being Bat Boy for opening night. We have just a half a minute before we close here today, Russ and Greg, for anything else to finish on Jamestown Community Baseball LLC and the exciting home start, first ever for the Tarp Skunks on Thursday night.
Well, this is the beginning of a 24 home game schedule for 2021. There's been keen excitement throughout. New team, new logo, new ownership. When you go to the ballpark, you'll see it freshened and a lot of new signage, a lot of new community support. And we also want to thank WJTN for you, Dennis, and all that you've done to encourage people to participate and really appreciate this community treasure.
Russ, we're out of time, but any final thoughts here just to put the capstone on this discussion today? I guess, I don't know if we had a line drop or what, but I don't hear Russ on the other end here. That's our show for today. Thank you very much to Russ Dietrich, Greg Peterson, especially Jim Gallagher. Great to see you again. And Tarp Skunks play ball, and hope it's a good night for baseball on Thursday.
Thank you, Dennis.